Hey everyone, Kim here, Abundant Life Tarot. Thank you so much for joining me for another Mystery Mystic Monday reading. We are exploring the devastating case of Ellen Greenberg, a 27-year-old first grade teacher and Philadelphia resident. That's where she shared an apartment with her fiance. On January 26, 2011, a blizzard hit the city, prompting Ellen to leave work and return to her apartment to hunker down. At approximately 6:40 p.m. on that day, Ellen was pronounced dead as a result of 20 stab wounds, including 10 to her back and neck. There was a gaping wound to her head, and the stab wounds reached her brain and spinal cord, which would have surely caused her severe pain. There were also 11 bruises on her right arm, abdomen, and right leg. The crime scene was initially handled as suicide by law enforcement. Following the autopsy, the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office initially had ruled her death a homicide. Not even a day later, though, the medical examiner backtracked and reversed their position on her death. They officially ruled her death a suicide in February 2011. Her fiance was the one who called the police to report something had happened to Ellen, and I do understand that there are suspicions swirling around his involvement. But of course, anyone who is discussed in any of my videos are always presumed innocent, okay? Always presumed innocent. And that's where we're going to go with that, all right? But I needed to say that. In 2019, her parents filed a legal civil suit against the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office and the pathologist who performed the autopsy, seeking to change the manner of death to homicide or undetermined. In September 2023, a lower appellate court ruled the manner of death still will remain as an unaliving, although they found the investigation was deeply flawed. Her parents plan to appeal the decision to the state's Supreme Court. Ellen's parents have been fighting for over a decade to ensure their daughter receives justice with a proper investigation. What we will be looking at in this reading is what were the energies surrounding her manner of death? Did she really take her own life, or did someone else have a hand in her demise? If someone else did cause her death, who and why? Why was law enforcement so set on this being an unaliving situation versus a homicide? Is there a cover-up as her family believes? And we'll be looking at what's next in the pursuit of a proper investigation of her death. I mean, because her family has been fighting for just simply a change to undetermined or to be ruled a homicide for her manner of death since 2011. And it is 2023 at the time of this recording. All right, my friends, we've got a lot to cover. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's go ahead and see what jumps as we tap into the energies surrounding the death of Ellen Greenberg. Keeping an open mind, you know, seeing what comes up. What I do recall from her case, I've been loosely following it. I've been loosely following it for a while now, since it happened. And I remember her mom saying that she was dealing with anxiety, maybe related to work. And I've been someone who's managed anxiety my whole life. And, it can take a toll or have, it can have a significant toll on your mental health and well-being. But no one got the impression that she was at a point of taking her life, So that is what I understand to be the extent of her, mental health struggles. But yeah, we're going to just dive in to this reading and see what Spirit wants to reveal to us about Ellen's death or, the cause. I'm just going to turn this light so it's not bright. Okay, that's a little better. And then I'm going to zoom in. But before I zoom in, we got tree, moth, fetus. I don't recall anything coming from the autopsy that she was expecting, but fetus doesn't always necessarily mean a baby is on the way. It could mean maybe that was a source of contention for this couple, or maybe she was dealing with a new beginning. We have dagger. Okay. Then we have bee. Hand. Heart. Key. All right, Spirit, thank you. I'm going to zoom in now so you all can see what I'm looking at here. And yeah. All right. So, tree. We've got a few cards here that indicates that she was embarking on a new beginning. And we know that, I don't know how long she had been a first grade teacher, but I do know she was engaged to be married. I don't know how long she had been living with her fiance prior to her death. But, this is a woman who was having new beginnings after new beginnings in her life. However, what's interesting to me with this card, the tree card, this is about strong growth, going through seasons of life, but being stable as she reached new heights. So this is almost telling me that, she came from a strong, background. She was mentally strong. Her mind was mentally strong. So that's what we kick off here. If there's any questions about any instability on her part, mental instability, surely there would be cards that would denote that. I do have cards in this deck that would denote that. And we'll see what comes later in the oracle reading. But yeah, that is what it's speaking to me. Now, the moth card is about transformation. Somebody being hopelessly attracted to something or someone, or a clingy person. It also, when this card comes up, it represents for me the transition of life to death. So it can mean that. But the card meanings that come with this deck is about being hopelessly attracted to something or someone, a clingy person. So someone being attracted to the stable situation, right? Maybe it could be her that's clingy to her fiance, or vice versa, or someone else who's clingy to her, or, it could be something along those lines, I suppose. But that, at the time of her transition, she was mentally sound, mentally stable, mentally strong, like a tree. Okay. Now we're going to look at the fetus card. This card, just so you know, yes, it can sometimes represent the desire of starting a family, the desire of a baby being on the way. But the key meanings for this card in the guidebook is about new beginnings. developing possibilities and new responsibilities. So Spirit is still saying, you know, she did have a lot of new responsibilities. She's a teacher. That in and of itself can be stressful. She's planning a wedding. That's stressful. Living with someone. Maybe she lived on her own for a while and now she's living with her fiance. Stressful. So many different stressors coming about as a result of new beginnings in her life. But I just can't help but feel like there may have been a source of contention around a fetus, around a baby. I don't know, something of a loss that happened that maybe no one else knows about. That's what I'm picking up on here. We have dagger, okay? The dagger card is about deceit, betrayal, hidden aggressions. Those are the key words. Those are my keywords as well, but they're definitely the guidebook's keywords. It's interesting that the dagger shows up because the dagger is, you know, because she died as a result of wounds from a knife, right? So that this card could just simply be speaking to that. But when we look at the symbolism of the card and the guidebook messages for this card, the key meanings is deceit, betrayal, hidden aggressions. So Spirit is like, I want you to understand something here. Sure, she could have betrayed herself, self-betrayal, of course. But typically when a card like this comes up with the hand card, a hand having her death, having someone's hand involved in it, someone having a hand in her death, someone who betrayed her, hidden aggressions that may not have been shown the light of day. Maybe family didn't even know about hidden aggressions that she was dealing with. That could be what that's speaking to as well. This is a woman who was a hard worker with this bee card. She is a worker bee. Maybe even perfectionist tendencies. Okay. She's productive. And she's, a social butterfly, or, there's some kind of energy here where there's social interactions and being hard at work. And as a result, she has stable connections here at work. Okay. The hand card is interesting to me as well, because like I mentioned before, it's sitting underneath the moth card. And let's see, the hand card is about giving or receiving some level of help, using one's skills for a purpose, having a hand at her transition. Now, this could represent is her own hand that did it, but I am going to be curious to see what the other oracle cards have to say in this reading to basically determine one way or the other. Did she take her own life, or did someone else have a hand in it? The heart card, interesting. For me, this is interesting because this is saying whoever had a hand in her demise. And this also could be that maybe she was heartbroken over something. Maybe, she was really downtrodden over something. Maybe her fiance allegedly made her sad, and that made her so sad and stressed out that she just didn't want to deal with it anymore. Could be. But I also just simply think that this card could mean that there is an emotional attachment to someone who had a hand. Now, sometimes someone who has a hand in someone else's death, it could just mean that you stressed them out. You worked hard to stress this person out and push them to the brink. It could be that. It could be just that level of involvement, or it could be more, okay? The heart card is about strong emotions being involved. This could be a matter of the heart. So that's what I'm picking up on here. Then we have the key. Now the key is interesting to me, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, her fiance, if my memory serves me correctly, He was home that day as well. I guess they may have like an on-site gym or something. I don't know if the gym was like nearby, like a fitness gym, or if it was like in like the building that they lived. But he went down to work out, and when he returned, he couldn't get back into the apartment with her. It had like, you know, one of those like deadbolts that you see at the hotels where you slam it closed and it prevents the door from opening. It's not really a deadbolt, but one of those latch kind of things. Anyways, he wasn't able to get in. But I found that so interesting to me. I found the whole thing interesting. And I guess that's probably the kicker here, is why law enforcement felt that she did this to herself, because of that latch on the door. Like, how would anybody have been able to do what they did to her and then leave in such a way where that latch closed and prevented the door from opening? How would that happen? So I can understand in that regard where law enforcement's coming from. What I don't understand is maybe there was, I don't know if there's a balcony. I don't know if there's another means of someone getting in some other way. That is also peculiar to me. So there's a key. This could be literally like a key to solving this, is something to do with the door. Some of the key meanings to this key card, according to the guidebook: freedom or imprisonment. Did she feel free in her life, or did she feel imprisoned? Did she feel free and imprisoned and betrayed? Perhaps. This is also about, another key meaning is resolving a mystery or keeping something safe. So we'll bear that in mind as we continue down the exploration of what may have happened to her. Wow, like the key, that is the last card, and that is for me part of the mystery. She has sustained wounds that just does not appear to be like they could be self-inflicted to me. I don't even know how you would be able to stab yourself in the back, or even in the back of the neck, or in the head. And after maybe after the second stabbing, you probably would fall to the ground. How are you able to have 20 stab wounds? Are these shallow wounds? So the mystery is that door. And so I'm getting a sense from these cards that perhaps there could be someone who had a hand in her demise. Okay. What do you all think? I'm definitely curious to hear what you think about what these cards are saying. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and pause and grab another deck. I'll be right back. All right. So let us tap into, what is the shadow energy surrounding the situation with Ellen, surrounding key relationships in her life, or the death itself. We have, oh my gosh, anxiety, bitterness, some sort of bitterness going on. No, not that many cards, Trevor. Not that many cards, but thank you. Just a few. No. Victim. Oh my God. I'm getting chills. Okay. So far we've got anxiety, bitterness, victim, betrayal. We have to be careful about that anxiety. And the reason I'm saying that is because all of a sudden in my mind's eye, I just got a thing in that's saying, it's almost like, yes, she did have anxiety, no doubt about it. But it's almost like somebody is scapegoating that to say that's the reason why what happened to her is what happened to her. That doesn't necessarily mean it's her fiance that's doing that. It could be law enforcement just putting out that narrative. And really and truly, when people do take their own lives, sometimes there's really no rhyme or reason that we're aware of. But I got a strong sense to be careful about that. Yes, she had anxiety, but we need to be careful about running with that narrative as the cause of her death. We have bitterness. There's some bitter energy going on here surrounding her death. We have victim. We have betrayal. So when I see victim, I see that likely means that she's a victim at the hands of someone else. Now, could you be a victim of, could you have victimized your own self? I guess. But typically when we think of victim, we think of someone else inflicting pain, right? Betrayal, that goes with this card. One of the key words to the dagger card is betrayal. So that is interesting to me that jumped out. When we're saying betrayal, yes, it could simply be another human being betraying another. It could be like, a stranger somehow got into her apartment or did that to her. But I don't get a sense of that. Usually betrayal would imply that it's someone you know. Anything else, Spirit, about? We have defensive, burdens. Someone burdened and bitter about the burdens. Defensive, maybe fight. She did have a lot of bruises. How did the bruises get there? It's like if the appellate court could see that the investigation was deeply flawed, why couldn't you at least have the decision rendered to overturn and have the cause of death be undetermined? Because if she's got bruises at different stages of healing on her body, at various spots on her body, well, how did that happen? How did that happen? And so the defensive card would tell me that perhaps maybe she had to put up a fight. That's what I'm thinking. Drug. Sometimes when this card comes up, it can represent a few things. It can represent the actual physical act of dragging someone. I drug her. I pulled her here. I put her here. I drug her. It could represent prescription drugs or illicit drugs. It could represent someone took something that day. It could represent someone takes something like steroids or something like that. I don't know. That's interesting to me that we got the word drug. One more card, please, Spirit. Desperation. Someone was desperate in their betrayal over her. And someone felt burdened and bitter. Was she burdened and was someone bitter, or vice versa? Or maybe both, or maybe whoever may have had a hand in this was bitter and burdened by her, or maybe she felt burdened and that was festering some bitterness between her and another person, Wow. Okay. Now that we know that she has, we already know that she's died. We know what the cause of death is. But the question is, did someone else have a hand in it? I feel safe to say I feel at this point like someone had a hand in it. As such, I'm going to get some decks out and get ready. But before I do, I like to pause just to kind of take in the messages that we've got on the table. I'll be right back. We're going to work with the Dark Mirror Oracle. Spirit, what can you reveal to us in 1 to 2 cards as to what caused or what led up to Ellen's death? Alone in the world. Someone either felt alone, she felt alone, and that's sad, Now this could, it very well could mean that she was all on her own and caused all of this, but I can't shake that someone else had a hand in it. Maybe psychologically pushed her to the brink. Colorless angel. All right, I don't know. I just get a sense of immense sadness with this card. Alone in the world. She having to, almost feel alone in her engagement or alone in this life, even though she had a great little social network. Forgetting oneself, maybe feeling like she was losing herself, or maybe someone who had a hand in this forgot who they were, that they're a child of God, and they did something or said something to her that really had her feeling alone. And then colorless angel. When this card comes up, it's like someone has definitely lost their life. An emptiness here. So I'm going to just read excerpts really fast from the guidebook. 1 second as I find each of the cards. I like now part of my style with the readings with this deck, the Dark Mirror Oracle, is to share with you what is in the guidebook, because oftentimes something that's said in the guidebook really will illuminate other areas of the reading. So we have alone in the world. The stage is acceptance. It says, in solitude I stand, in solitude I may shine. I made my home a cloister, my heart a chalice for the faintest breeze, and yet I stand alone. It says, waiting for something to come back. When we parted ways, we promised to each other, I will wait for you and I will come back. We may have used different words like it's just for a few months, or a sharper pen like I don't need you. Still we are waiting. Mind has lost hope. Body has lost memory, but our hearts is still incomplete. It is shrined into a blessed feeling of longing and desire, innocence and hope, but it is also entombed into a well of solitude and distance. It built walls to stall the passage of time, and the walls kept out everything. Will the prince come, or has the world gone silent while we waited? Waiting is a transition. It has a beginning and it has an end. Waiting is the night. Morning brings the sun of a new day. Maybe this is not necessarily from her perspective, even though it shows a woman, a nude woman, vulnerable even. She was vulnerable, but it almost feels like someone else was waiting for her. Waiting. Interesting. Number 17, forgetting oneself. I turn right to it. Stage is denial. Now, the stage of denial in grief, for example, could be that maybe there is some sort of key evidence that we're not privy to in the public's eye that really leans towards she taking her own life. And then maybe her family is in denial, but I don't know about that. It says time as an eternal present, not fleeting but locked. No progress is no regress either. I'm just looking here to see if there's anything else I want to share from this. Okay. It says, okay. I'm just looking to see where I want to start reading. It says, more of yourself to be forgotten, to feel just a little better, and maybe the twisted idea that if you forget everything, then you will actually really feel better. Forgetting everything, letting everything go, not just as a moment of rest, but as a jump in the dark. It is like vertigo. You stand on the edge of the precipice, and a little part of you wants to jump, but it is just a moment of rest. A moment of pause, a moment of uncreative selfishness. So what? Let it be and sleep soundly. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. That is interesting. These cards kind of tip the way towards maybe she did take her own life. And probably if I were to do a deep dive tarot reading, I would ask questions or see what would be revealed about the nature of the relationship between her and her fiance. Was there energies of them possibly going to separate at some point? Were they really going to walk down the aisle? You know how sometimes we get engaged and then we try on the dress, but there's a part of us that just isn't going to make it down the aisle. Could it be, what is the nature of their relationship? Yeah. And then finally, colorless angel. Another card about denial. Stage is denial. It says it is better not to feel rather than feeling pain. Apathy is the crown king of nothingness and the shining queen of whatever. Okay. All the strong rivers can become a swamp when they reach the plains, and the most yummy food can become gummy after a couple of hours unattended on a table. There is a lot of darkness when we make the habit of going gray. We numb our senses with a fog of delays, and then we just get indifferent to the fog herself. I'm here, we whisper, and if, by a very tiny chance, someone notices and replies and asks, "Who's there?" we become shy and we stay silent a little more. You cannot be saved unless you face the dragon, and the dragon hurts. Of course it does. So these are interesting cards, I have to say. Desperation also looks differently to me now. Someone could be desperate that they wanted to, end something or control something, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it was someone outside of Ellen that was desperate. She could have been desperate, All right, now I'm going to pause and we're going to continue to dive a little deeper, peel back more layers. I'll be back. All right, so let's look at the shadow aspects in terms of like her or her relationships. And this is from a different deck, okay, that I created. It's not for sale, but it's one that I use for my readings, client readings. Okay. I did want to know the nature of her relationship, like with her fiance, and I think these cards will help us to kind of get there, okay? All right. So we have codependent patterns. So there was starting to become a codependent nature of maybe their relationship, or maybe her becoming more codependent on someone close to her, or, there's codependent patterns that is swirling around Ellen. There were secrets, someone holding secrets from her, or she's keeping secrets from others, or maybe it was secretive about like the true nature of her mental state. We have here depressive vibes. Maybe this was supposed to be the happiest time for her, and she just wasn't necessarily really in a happy place. She had a lot of demands, new beginnings happening in her life, and yet there was a depressive vibe surrounding her. This also could represent people who are closest to her having a depressive vibe as well. We have know-it-all. Maybe there's someone in her life that she was dealing with that has a know-it-all kind of energy, which can at times be quite draining when you're dealing with somebody like that. Maybe she felt like she had to be a know-it-all all the time. Although I get a sense this is coming at her, not necessarily of her. Demanding too much time. Was she demanding? See, that sits underneath the codependent patterns card. Maybe she was demanding too much time, or someone was demanding too much time of her. If somebody was becoming too codependent on her, or vice versa. So there could be some dynamics here that we are not privy to as the public. I don't even know how far her family knows about what was going on over here. Someone in the relationship may have come off as ice cold, or needy, or, we have the neediness here. The neediness is the codependent patterns of demanding too much, and someone responding in kind to not responding in a way. In fact, being kind of messy towards her, for example. This could represent a messy situation, a messy home, a messy life, a messy way of doing things. It could mean actual messes, or it could be something else. It could be like, this person is messy. Okay. This was the source of her depressive vibe. And dealing with arrogance. When I look at pictures of her, I don't get a sense that she's arrogant. But this could be that she was dealing with someone who's a know-it-all and who's quite arrogant. And that was really starting to get her down. And, messing with her mental headspace. All right, I'll pause here. I want to zoom in and take a picture. All right, so we're going to pull 1 to 3 cards from this deck. I'm always hesitant to pull it, but since she did pass away, I'm just going to see if there's anything here that can be revealed with this deck. I only usually pull this out if I know for sure that someone has passed. I don't like to use it like if it's for like disappearance cases or missing persons cases. Okay. All right. Well, Spirit wanted to give me 4. Surveillance cameras may provide important clues. The profile indicates narcissist or sociopath. I got that vibe earlier with the arrogance and ice cold, and there's a couple of other cards that lead me to believe that she was dealing with somebody who may have been kind of doing mind manipulation with her. I don't know. It just didn't feel like the healthiest place to be as it relates to her in this dynamic with another person. And I don't want to, point fingers to her fiance, but that would be the person closest to her. This is all alleged. It's all my intuitive opinion, if you will. So I don't know. That's interesting to me that card came up. The surveillance, that's also interesting because that can tell a lot. Now, I don't know if there's surveillance I don't know how many floors up she lived in her apartment, like if they have balconies or not. Or if there's surveillance of, going into the entrance and going in the hallway, if it's that type of complex where you have a hallway. But if there is, are there cameras? And if there are cameras, did they capture either someone going to her door, someone not? If they didn't capture anything, that's important information too, right? That's a critical important information. Maybe the absence of seeing someone aside from her and her fiance going in is what also has law enforcement leaning towards her taking her own life. Okay. We have jealousy, an affair, or love-related crime. So remember when I have here the heart, matters of the heart. Someone could be jealous. Someone could be It says love-related crime, maybe not necessarily an affair, maybe not an affair, maybe suspicions of an affair, or it could just simply be that this was like a crime of passion, or somebody was really in their feelings about her. Maybe they felt a way about her getting married. I don't know. Then we have important details are not being revealed to the public at this time. I mentioned that earlier. That law enforcement may not be sharing the full picture of why they believe what they believe, but there could be some critical information that goes against what law enforcement is saying that they're not revealing, right? That they're choosing not to reveal. All right. I'm going to take a picture of this. I'll be right back.